Hello, I'm Zack Stanton.
And I'm Wren, and it's Friday, June 6th.
And this is the Playbook Podcast. Without further ado, here are the topics driving the day. If you're like us, you're probably riveted by the feud between Donald Trump and Elon Musk, and we'll get to that shortly. But first, let's look at two other big stories that are driving the day. The first story driving Washington's conversation today is a new jobs report due out later this morning. The Bureau of Labor Statistics is set to release its findings at 8:30 a.m., and you can be sure that many observers will be interpreting its results as a report card on Trump's unorthodox trade and tariff agenda. Speaking of trade, Trump finally had his phone call with Chinese President Xi Jinping to address the trade tensions between the US and China. Now, Trump described the call as very good and proclaimed victory on the rare earths issue and said there would be follow-up meetings in the near future. He also said, though, that President Xi invited him and Melania to visit China and that he returned the favor. The second topic you'll surely need to know today is about reconciliation and the One Big Beautiful Bill. Elon Musk's attacks on the reconciliation mega bill have been a headache for Speaker Mike Johnson, who has scrambled to parry the billionaire's criticisms this week. But there's no guarantee that they'll be more than a headache, because Hill Republicans are more loyal to Trump. One House member told Politico's Meredith Lee Hill, "I don't think Musk's killing the bill. I'm more worried he's killing our sales pitch." Now, that doesn't mean that Senate Majority Leader John Thune has an easy path to pass the bill, between competing concerns from fiscal hawks, moderates, and blue state House members. In addition to Musk's X account, the pain points to watch today include SALT. The Washington Post reports that Trump indicated to senators he'd be okay with a lower state and local tax deduction, which would be good for the bill's promise in the Senate, but bad for its chances in the House. Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin said Trump was also open to keeping business tax break extensions temporary, as Politico's Brian Failer reports. Now, that would lower the price tag, but top Hill Republicans are insistent on making them permanent. And then finally, the Senate Commerce Committee released its portion of the bill text, which changes the House's 10-year outright ban on states regulating AI to instead block federal broadband funding for states that pass AI laws. What remains to be seen is whether either of these provisions will pass the so-called bird bath in the Senate. Now let's get to what everyone's talking about, the fight between Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Adam, I think we all knew that this day was going to come, but we've been a bit surprised by what it's actually looked like. What has surprised you most about this fight so far today?
That it's only just now happening. This was a breakup that was forecasted by many people, including some in the MAGA movement, like Steve Bannon, who has taken a very public victory lap in the last 24 hours, saying, "I told you so," to a lot of national reporters, me included. And you can read more about that today in Playbook. But essentially, Bannon has long said that Musk is an interloper on the MAGA movement, that he's not true MAGA, that this was all sort of a business case for him. And we're sort of seeing that. I mean, the coverage around Musk has been that he's doing a heel turn, but in reality, he's sort of always been about his business. And the truth was, for a long time, Democrats and cultivating Democrats like former President Obama were good for his business empire. And then for a brief period last year and some this year, Donald Trump seemed good for his business empire. But ultimately, right now, the things that he most wanted from this big, beautiful bill, EV tax credits, other items, having Jared Isaacson, the former NASA appointee by Trump, whose nomination was pulled, who has ties to SpaceX, all of those things that he wanted and worked for and spent $300 million to get Trump elected, there's sort of been a rug pull there. And so it's easy to sort of read this, I think, in a business case context where he's not getting what he wants, so he's going nuclear on Trump.
Yeah, and going nuclear in this case includes making outlandish and unproven allegations, including that Donald Trump appears in the Jeffrey Epstein files, and that's why the FBI hasn't released them in full. This seems to have gotten ugly very quickly. Have you heard anything about attempts to de-escalate or what that's going to look like in the days ahead?
Yeah, we heard late into the night on Thursday that there were a lot of efforts to de-escalate. Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, went on Sean Hannity and made efforts to de-escalate. We have some fresh reporting this morning that a number of Trump advisors are urging him to do the same, and that really by the end of the night Thursday, Trump was sort of over the whole feud and didn't see a lot of juice left in the squeeze to continue going after Elon. There's some concern among Trump allies about Elon's mental state. And there's been some reporting by the New York Times and others about his use of drugs like ketamine. We don't really know how and whether that's played into the X rant that we've seen here, but Trump is cognizant of it, and they see their best case outcome right now as de-escalating this feud. And there's some evidence that Elon Musk himself has bought into de-escalation. JD Vance, the vice president, who he formally earlier in the day called to take over for Trump, was going on the Theo Von show recording Thursday night and tweeted out, "Is there anything to talk about?" Kind of a slow news day. And we saw Elon Musk retweet that with a crying, laughing face emoji. So some evidence that he's trying to de-escalate even on his side as well.
It's hard because once something is said, you can de-escalate going forward, but you obviously can't take back what you've already said. You can try and make amends for it. But when it comes to things like what Elon said about whether it's Epstein or whether it's what he said about Trump's tariffs, that they're going to cause a recession later this year, or what he said about the one big beautiful bill, which is going to potentially be played, and which Musk himself implicitly threatened in an X post earlier on Thursday, where he said Trump will be around 3.5 more years, I'll be around 40 more. It seems that that's kind of difficult to undo. You can't really unring that bell.
Yeah, and there's some reporting out there that Musk is going to be retributive in his approach to the 2026 midterms. But a lot of Republicans I talked to, including one Republican senator who shall remain anonymous, essentially said that they're not concerned about what Musk is going to do in November of next year. They had already been planning for a midterm landscape in which he had promised that he was going to kind of withdraw a lot of his political activity. His companies are mounting losses and he needs to attend to those. And so there's some question about how effectual he would be in carrying out his promised retribution next year.
So when you're talking with members or when you're even talking with other major Republican figures, how are we sort of handicapping their loyalty in this Musk versus Trump fight?
Yeah, it's fascinating. You have the world's richest man who spent $300 million to get Trump elected and the world's most powerful man in Trump. And it's remarkable to me how many Republicans are siding with Trump in this and sort of casting Elon aside. And so, but for a few sort of rebels in the House caucus on the Republican side, mostly you're seeing folks know where their bread is buttered, and that's with Donald Trump and not Elon Musk.
This is something that has such a large blast radius that we're just beginning to sort of sort through how this will affect not only the 2026 landscape, of course, which is still a ways off, but how this affects things in the more immediate future and who the winners and losers are here. If you are handicapping all of this, who do you see as the clear winners and losers from falling out between Elon Musk and Donald Trump?
I mean, Steve Bannon, who we spoke with, and you can read more about in our Playbook top this morning, is the clear winner here. He has been sounding the warning bell about Elon Musk and, was taking a victory lap Thursday night. Clear winner, Vivek Ramaswamy, who sort of escaped the Doge blast radius by running for Ohio governor. He's off in Ohio happily, all but clinching the nomination from his party. And you have other folks like SpaceX, sort of clear potential losers here. Trump threatening to pull their funding, which could impact the International Space Station, Musk's other companies. So it's interesting to watch how this all shakes out.
And what are you going to be watching in the days ahead or even today as this fight sort of just blossoms more?
Trump is a street fighter and he does an X feud better than almost anyone and has since his days of tangoing with Rosie O'Donnell and others. And so, this is sort of his natural instinct here, but to the extent that Susie Wiles and others can sort of pull him back from the brink, I'll be watching that and to see if he sees that Elon Musk in some ways is a wounded animal and pulls back and doesn't continue attacking him. I think that'll be an interesting tell.
And as always, we try to end the show with something more lighthearted from the Playbook newsletter, and today is no exception, even amid the Trump-Musk fight. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth has a birthday today. He turns 45, which means that he is still quite young, even as leader of the Pentagon. And maybe I think he's quite young because I'm approaching my 40th quite soon here myself. So 45 seems younger to me than perhaps it once did. But happy birthday to Secretary Hegseth. You can send us your Playbookers tips, birthdays, or spotted moments to playbook@politico.com. Adam, thanks. This is great.
Good to be with you.
And that's all for today's Playbook Podcast. We have much more news and analysis in today's Playbook newsletter, which you can find at politico.com/playbook. We'll be back Monday. Have a great weekend.